Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another chess opening video. Today, we're going over a popular opening, so popular that Netflix made a show about it, the Queen's Gambit. It starts with d4, d5. Once the move c4 is played, this is now known as the Queen's Gambit. While it is considered a gambit, most of the time, white regains the lost pawn in the opening if black were to take the pawn and accept the gambit. It has similar principles to the Sicilian defense, another popular opening, e4, c5, and where black, in this case, tries to give up a bishop's pawn for a central pawn. The Queen's Gambit has many variations, some of which I will talk about today, and can lead to many exciting games, which will always keep your opponent on edge, no matter if you're playing with white or black. I will now talk about when black accepts the gambit with pawn takes c4. This is also known as the Queen's Gambit accepted, and usually white moves the e pawn here, whether it be e3 or e4. After, let's just say e3, you attack the pawn with your bishop and you take central space. Of course, this is also exemplified if you move e4. Now you have full control of the center with these two central pawns. After e3, let's just say, black should not protect the pawn with moves such as b5. After a4, you're just dismantling the defense, and after a6, you take, and they can't take back because you'll take the rook. And if moves such as c6 are played, you take, and now you have queen f3 attacking the rook in the corner. After knight comes here to sacrifice itself to protect the rook. Queen protects the rook here. This still works with e4. Let's say you play e4. You don't have the queen move, as you can see, the pawn blocks it, but if you were to do this thing again, have it takes, knight c3 attacks this pawn and develops your knight. And now you are really having the advantage in development. Even though a6 is said to be pretty good here, white has a pleasant position. After a move such as b4, you might be like, oh no, my knight's being attacked. You have queen a4, which is a check on the king, and now next move you can collect the pawn. Let's just say bishop blocks, and you can take the pawn. Nowadays, most people don't accept the gambit just because I don't know. It's just more popular to decline the gambit nowadays. But if your opponent were to accept the gambit, well, I'm getting my acceptance and declines mixed up. Most of the games would look like this. If you play e3 or e4, they can play e6, takes, knight comes here. I could just play knight f3. They might counterattack in the center with c5. Don't have to worry about that. You can just castle, play solid. And this is now just a normal middle game. Middle game is kind of a weird saying, but you know, it is a middle game. This is just a normal dynamic game which can lead to some fun games, especially this is in the Queen's Gambit accepted. Now I'll talk about the Queen's Gambit declined. Now onto the Queen's Gambit declined. Black declines the gambit with the move e6, solidifying its d central pawn with another central pawn with the move e6. After this, white generally develops and adds pressure to the center with moves such as knight c3. After moves such as knight f3, this is knight f6, solidifying the structure even more. You can bring out your bishop to attack the knight. You can also bring out your knight to continuously develop. Let's say white moves knight f3. After developing moves such as bishop e7, you can play moves such as bishop g5, pinning it, and now later you can play e3 since your bishop is now out to solidify your center. After black castles, you can play the early queen c2 in this position and not e3 to threaten the move h4 if black plays h6 to kick out your bishop. If white plays h4 in this position, black should not take the bishop. It might seem free, but after takes, white is actually winning with this queen-rook attack. And this knight's also under attack. So you actually have to give up your knight. And protects your king. Now to go back, you might have noticed in the beginning that black blocks in the bishop with this pawn. However, this is not a problem for black, as black eventually is going to play moves such as b6 and fianchetto the bishop later on. Now we can go back to the beginning. You might be saying, whoa, after knight c3, what about takes? This is pretty bad for black, as after this, you can do the move e4. This takes even more central space with these two strong connected pawns, and you surround this pawn, and it's not losing for black per se, but it is definitely not looking good for black. So this is the Queen's Gambit declined in its small variations. I'm not going to go too in depth in this video, but for this, black gets a conservative position and has to watch out for the king side with early attacks with that queen c2. Now I'm going to move on to other variations such as the semi-Slav, where you actually play the moves such as c6. No, this is the Slav side. The semi-Slav is when you have the full triangle defense, where instead it's the same thing basically, except you're using a bishop's pawn, and now you bring the bishop is now available to come out instead of the Queen's Gambit declined where you block in your bishop. The semi-Slav is very similar to the Queen's Gambit declined, except as I said before, the bishop is now free to come out. In these types of games, it's just very positional. You just develop your pieces like this, and of course you want to bring out this bishop before you play moves such as e3. I'm just going to just bring out your two knights. There is a trick here though, it's probably one of the only tricks, is that if they do bring out the bishop, you do have queen b3 eventually just to hit this pawn and weaken the pawn structure over here. But after this, it's really not much. I mean, black's not going to lose the pawn in the corner. Let's just say after this, they're going to go into the semi-Slav side. You probably want to pin the bishop here or something, pin the knight. And after e6, it's going to go into the Slav defense, even though it has the semi-Slav structure. Of course, the semi-Slav, let me go back, is where if after this and they play c6 and you bring your knight out, you can just play a semi-Slav and like this. It's accelerated semi-Slav. It's just triangle structure. I mean, there's really nothing else to it. It's very interesting. I mean, you're blocking your light squared bishop. So usually you take out your light squared bishop before you bring out this. Let's just say, I don't know, of course it isn't really too good for black in this position, but let's just say you develop your knight, and after here, this is, whoa, I don't even know what that is, but you get the idea. The semi-Slav is when you have the triangle structure in the center of the board. So now back to the Slav defense. After here, you just develop knight here, let's say you bring out your bishop, pin, they now have the triangle structure. You can play e3 in this position. They can bring their bishop out here. You can bring your knight here, bring your bishop here, and then castle. It's just positional, developmental game. It's just going to go into a normal, as I said before, middle game. But I'm not going to say. Okay. Okay, after this, I'll go into some more spicy Queen's Gambit variations, such as the, what is it called? The Alban counter gambit, where it goes like this. d4, d5, and white's like, oh, I'm going to gambit, I'm going to do c4, and black's like, no, I'm going to gambit against you, and I'm going to play e5. Whoa. The Alban counter gambit is a counter gambit, and is really good against white if they don't know what they're doing and can catch them off guard and lead to an easy early victory. I will switch to black in this position. I'll just flip the board, since most of the tricks involve black. After this, it's pretty good for white just to take the gambit, or accept the gambit, and then after this, you play the move d4, restricting the movement, and this might look threatening to white, which may prompt them to play the move e3, which is not good for white at all. After the move bishop b4 check, this is looking pretty bad for white, as they have to block the check with the piece, minor piece. The most popular move is just to block with the bishop, to threaten their bishop, but after this you have the trick pawn takes e3. After this may look like a free bishop, but is not. If you take it, white is going to be soon losing. After bishop takes, as you can see, the engine does not like it, with pawn takes f2 check. This is checking the king, which is also protecting your queen. Well, white's queen. And after king moves here, because it still needs to protect the queen, you may be like, X-ray time, I'm going to win the queen with this bishop. But no, after knight moves, you can't even make a queen anymore, and it's still protecting the king. So after this, you might want to make a queen. It's like, oh, I'm getting an extra queen. But no, after takes, that's check. So you have to take. And takes, that's check. You're not winning anymore. So the correct order is to take the knight, but now you make your own knight, and this is check. This is really good. And after this, you can play king e1 to still protect the queen, but he's just going to lose. Queen h4, check. White's going to lose all their pieces. Queen e4. They're going to lose the rook in the corner. Just not looking good. Oh, yeah, and I said before, you might be like, oh, what if I just take it? Well, then now you can just X-ray, because you have nothing to block it. Okay, so now go to some good moves for white to counter this counter gambit. So, in this position, the absolute best move is to play knight f3. This attacks the pawn and supports this pawn, which can be attacked later on. After this, you might be like, oh, bishop, I want to just check. Nope, not very good. They can just block, and you don't really have that much of a threat, because this pawn's not here. So after knight here, black should just develop. They can also do another gambit by gambiting this pawn to develop the knight, but just you can play solidly, threaten this pawn. And actually the best move here is a3, and just ignore this threat, because this bishop coming to b4 is just too threatening for white. And after this, you can just bring out your bishop here, or you can play a5, preventing white gaining a lot of space on the queen side. So this is just a quick developing game for black. You can just gambit this pawn, takes, you bring out your knight, and after slow moves such as this, you want to maybe bring out your bishop, bring out your queen, long castle, just quickly gain space and gain development in this counter gambit. Of course, if white plays it solidly, white's going to have a slight advantage out of the opening. So today, the last things I'm going to talk about are tricks for white and black respectively. 2 tricks to talk about to maybe spice up your queen's gambit games. So if black tries to defend the pawn with a knight in this position, knight f6, this is not really good for black, as you can just take, and after knight takes, e4, and you just gain a lot of central space, and then you might start jumping around, and you might play e5, or if you want to play solidly, you can just defend with your knight. Of course, if you want to play e5, that's good, that's pretty aggressive, but you might overextend yourself later on. So, this is pretty good. And also, you might be saying, oh no, what if they take with the queen in this position? Oh, you just have knight c3, and you're attacking the queen, and it's looking pretty good for white. After black moves to queen a5, doing classic Scandinavian with pinning your knight, you can just do a3, you can move your bishop if it's worried about it, or you can just later play moves such as, I don't know, just play solid, knight f3, maybe break the pin, later play e4, once this pawn's defended enough. And yeah, so now I'm going to go to this Chigon defense, a trick for black, especially aggressive counter-attacking strategy, and will definitely catch white off guard if they don't know what they're doing. So I'm going to flip the board again, because this is mainly focusing on black. So after the move c4, initiating the queen's gambit, black has the move knight c6. This may look like, oh, what if you're not really doing anything? I mean, it's kind of weird, right? No, you're being very aggressive, because they can't exactly take this pawn. Well, they could. Takes. Now you have 2 attackers on this pawn, and it's not looking that good. If they play e3, they're blocking their light squared bishop in the cost for their light. So, whoa, I'm messing this up. Dark squared bishop, and they do open their light squared bishop. It's not really looking that good for them. Of course, the engine says otherwise. And you play e5, break open the center. And if they play moves like, oh, that's not a good move. If they play moves like, I'm going to kick out your queen now. No, you don't. I'm not even going to move my queen. I'm that lazy. I'm going to pin your knight. Oh, no. And then you can see it's very fast developmental game, like the, the album counter gambit. And just black brings out a lot of pieces and initiates quick attacks. I'm messing up my words. Okay, let's go back. So for you go on, after takes, just play solidly. You can bring out your knight later on. You might still want to quickly attack. You can actually just attack this knight straight away. Now, it's safe to do this as the bishop is not, excuse me, the bishop is not freed, and you can't free it because you're just going to lose your queen. So you can do the Scandinavian thing like the last time, bring out your queen like here, pin the knight, maybe long castle if you're really ambitious. Let's just say e3. You can just long castle and apply way more pressure on white. Super fast, quick attacks to spice up your Queen's Gambit games. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope maybe you can win a little bit more games with this trick up your sleeve. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do that shabam, and adios. See you, I don't know, maybe another time.